I'm a builder. It's all a business. It's all strategic for me.
Welcome back to another episode of Richer Lives. I'm Vivian Tu, and today I'm sitting down with an Emmy-winning actor and producer whose work is as powerful as it is intentional, Colman Domingo. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Viv. How are you?
Oh, you even just smiling at me makes me feel more comfortable.
Oh, you're so sweet.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I am so excited for our interview, but before we hop in, what is one fashion item you are always willing to splurge on because everybody knows you are one of the best dressed men in Hollywood?
It's changed now. I've moved into my my jewelry period.
Okay, bling bling. We love that.
I love a little bling. I love a little jewelry. I love a little statement piece. I'm a brand ambassador for Valentino, and I have a lot of clothing at my arsenal. So I think the things that I splurge on are more like pieces that I feel like I'll have for a long time, or usually I'll get my husband to buy me something.
Yeah, perfect.
I don't know, something that I feel like will be timeless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, I feel like we're all magpies. We just like to collect little shiny things.
Yeah, totally.
So let's get into your background a little bit. You grew up in West Philadelphia. I'm not going to do it, guys.
Born and raised.
That's so embarrassing. I can't believe I just tried that.
You got it.
You had a single mom. Money was tight. How did that shape your childhood?
My mother was working several jobs. She was cleaning houses as well as going back to school. And I think I learned from her sort of the power of hard work. Nothing was going to be given to you. And then when my stepfather came along, my stepfather sanded hardwood floors. And during the summers, if I wanted to make some extra money, I would go and work with him. I had to be, 12 years old? He would pay me $10 or something like that. And he told me, he said, you know what, this is your last time doing this with me. And I was like, why? I thought I was doing good. He said, because I don't want you to do this work. I want you to focus on your studies. You're smart. I want you to use your head to do good work. He had me feel the calluses on his hands. And he said, I don't want you to have these. He said, you have soft hands. I want you to have soft hands. And my parents said, we got jobs. We don't want you to get a job. We want you to have a career. My parents wanted different for me. Find something that you love to do and trust that that thing will take care of you.
What a gift.
Yeah.
Pivoting into a little later now, most of us know you as an actor, producer, but before all of this, you were actually studying journalism.
Yeah.
What does success or stability look like at that time in your life?
Well, what did it look like at that time? When I was studying journalism at Temple University, I was not, I think, a great student.
Really?
In my news writing classes, I was what they would call, I was too florid in my writing. I was leaning more towards creative writing, but I was trying to do that in a news writing format.
Yeah.
I was interested in that because I was also very shy, which may be hard to believe.
I feel like I can't, I don't even believe you. I feel like that's a lie.
I know, no, listen, I was bookish and I was on the school newspaper and I just wanted to be behind the scenes. I loved watching and then telling stories in that way. It wasn't until I took an acting class where I realized that part of my storytelling would come out. So it just became a natural progression. I didn't even know that was my path until a teacher told me that one day in school. My teacher told me that I was gifted in this form, and I'd never heard that before. And he said to me, I'd be very curious if you follow this path because I think you have a gift. And so that is the one who told me that whatever I was doing as an observer and wanting to tell people stories in a journalistic way could be applied into, living and breathing it as an actor.
And let me ask an incredibly probing question. Temple University, how did you pay for it?
I first went in with lots of grants, actually, because,
Wonderful. Grants great because you don't have to pay them back.
Grants were great. Grants were great. I remember I had a Pell grant. I had, Pell was the major grant. And some other grants. And then eventually I would get a few loans, student loans, because I just wanted to support myself and really just focus on my studies. So I needed some support.
How long did it take you to pay those off?
Oh my God. It took me a long time to pay off my student loans. I think it took me I kind of feel like it took about 20 years to pay that off.
Wow. Do you know how much you had borrowed?
Maybe $20,000 total.
Wow.
But because, the interest rates, and I kept, deferring, it just kept going up. Sometimes I would just defer because, I was making my life as an artist.
Yeah.
So basically, I didn't have that sort of money to pay it off. So sometimes it would take maybe a year for me to start getting back on a payment plan. It was tough. I remember it was a joyous time to finally pay off my student loans.
I mean, I would celebrate.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that your acting class professor saw a gift in you. Let's be real. A lot of actors don't make it. What made you believe that you could And how did you pursue it?
I don't know, foolishness. There were times where I thought I couldn't afford my career. I thought it just didn't make sense. I don't come from means.
Yeah, not a Nepo baby.
No, not a Nepo baby. Anything I had was because I earned it, plain and simple. I could never go and ask my parents to help me because they were just being able to help themselves.
Yeah.
You know, I was a hustler. I know how to bartend. I can dance. I can act. I can cut hair. I can do anything to make a buck. You know what I mean? While I'm pursuing my art. So I knew that that was part of who I was as I was becoming an artist. I've got to be flexible. I got to be able to do a lot of things. And sometimes I may look like I'm not on an artistic path, but maybe I'm on a path to like pay my bills, to take care of having the artistic life that I wanted. So I feel like there was always a balance. I've been a working artist for 35 years.
Right.
I probably started making a real income 15 years ago.
Wow.
And then it really changed 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But for a long time, it was like highs and lows, which is why I had to be smart about finding ways to support my life as an artist. When I lived in New York, I had a rent-stabilized apartment at Manhattan Plaza. I got on that long waiting list and I waited it out for 9 years, got into an apartment where basically I would pay 30% of my income a year for my housing. Once you're in, you're in. So there's times when I didn't have to really work a hustle. I would work, you know, I would just be on unemployment and I would pay like $150 a month. You know, living in 43rd Street in Manhattan in an 800 square foot apartment with a balcony. I lived well, and then I could write the plays that I wanted to write. I could work off Broadway and get paid $400 a week. I had freedom. That was the life as an artist. I had to be smart about it.
Yeah.
I had to figure that part out. And a lot of times people don't tell you that part where it's like, how can you really make your life work as an artist and make smart choices?
Those strategies bought you the time to then be able to pursue your craft.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you've talked about a number of programs, the Pell Grants, the subsidized housing in New York City. If those programs didn't exist, do you think you would still be an actor today, or would you have made it?
No, I wouldn't. It's a very civil response, I think, to make sure that we have opportunities to support artists. The idea that I lived in this incredible building that produced people like Alicia Keys and who was that? Samuel Jackson. They all lived in this building at some point. Timothy Chalamet, he grew up in this building. There's a need for that. There's a need for many different sort of subsidies so people can actually contribute to society as well. I feel like we all needed that. I know I needed that. I think I probably would have stopped and done something a little differently if I didn't have that opportunity. I probably would have just eventually had a 9-to-5, something that made sense. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Crushed your soul.
Yeah, exactly, you know?
Is there a piece of financial advice you would go back to then Colman to give him now?
It's never just about the art. You have to be smart about how you make it, how you create it, how you take care of it. And even when you start making a little bit of money as well. I didn't grow up with money, so I didn't know the language of money. But I did know that once I started to gain some of it in small ways, whether it's I was doing a show on Broadway and I started to make some decent money, I knew that this was, I have to be smart about it. I'm not someone who spends in a very extravagant way. I will put it away. I will start to think about it and start to get some financial advice. I'm like, I need some help with this because I don't know how to manage this. I know I can turn it into some more or figure it out. Eventually, I would love to own an apartment or a house or something, but how do I do that? And young Colman was not afraid to say, when I needed an accountant, I got an accountant. When I needed a bookkeeper, I got a bookkeeper. When it was time to get a business manager, I was like, I think it's now getting to a place where I need to really figure this out and figure out wealth as well. But I need help. And a lot of people get stuck at that point because they're afraid to pay other people. Everyone thinks about, oh, well, they cost this much or they take 10% out of this. I'm like, you can't think about that. They become your CFO. They become the person that really helps you invest and help you learn about money and figure it out. It's their expertise, not yours. I just knew there was something I was lacking and I needed in order to be successful. And listen, I've been poor all my life. I'm not afraid of that, but I know I have an opportunity to be better. And young Colman sees that day.
Yeah. It's so funny that you say that because we also had Anthony Ramos on the show and he made a really big point of saying it's called show business, not just show. You actually have to understand the business piece to make the artwork.
Listen, the only difference between my success and someone who may be just as talented or may not be as successful is I have a really good sense of business. I'm a builder. It's all a business. It's all strategic for me. I can even tell you about the presence of fashion work. When people say, oh, you're one of the most stylish men in Hollywood.
Wait, tell me about that.
It's been very conscious. I know that what my platform is, and I know that I was getting a larger platform, and also know that fashion is another way to tell story, and also building brand relationships as well. As a 56-year-old Black queer man having a brand ambassadorship from a legendary brand like Valentino is extraordinary. I think it just all makes sense. One step leading to another, but it's all business. And I knew the platform that I could have, but I wanted to be thoughtful about it and how do I do it.
There was a blueprint. We weren't just building this haphazardly.
No, people think, oh, you just love the dress. I'm like, it's all very specific.
I love to further my career.
It's all a part of it. One feeds into the other. Yeah.
What's one thing that is like the biggest surprise for you to learn about fashion or the business side of red carpets?
How kind people are in the fashion world. Yeah. I've made so many really good friends and comrades in the fashion space. I think there's a whole stigma about fashion people in the industry and that it's catty and all that. I'm sure there's a lot of that too. But I feel like I've become very ingrained in it, being with these incredible artisans, and I love learning more about like texture and textiles and, why these things were used and fabrics and all. So I'm just fascinated by all of it.
Okay. I have to ask, do you get to keep the clothes?
Okay, Sarah Jessica Parker said she keeps the clothes.
Ooh,
okay. She said that she had that in her contract years ago. I don't keep the clothes. But you know why, though? I don't want a lot of stuff. But I want things to go back to archives and eventually show up at the Victoria and Albert Museum or something like that. So I don't keep the clothes. I'm like, take them away.
Circular economy, we give it back.
We wear it well, we give it back.
Let's take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back with more from Colman. Be honest, besties. How many times have you skipped trying something new because you didn't want to mess up? Whether it's pottery, guitar, or even crypto, how you start matters. So why not start with an advantage? SoFi is offering a 1% match on crypto buys through March 30th, no matter what the market does. Buy $500 in crypto, get an extra $5. Buy $1,000, get $10. It's an automatic bonus that adds up over time. Plus, you get a platform with bank-level safety, built-in education, and instant money movement all in one app. We love a strong start. Learn more at SoFi.com/crypto. You mentioned going from being like a starving artist to a working artist to an artist that really does get paid the big bucks. Is there like a specific film or play or something that you can pinpoint that to?
By the time I started to work on Broadway, I'm making some good money.
Okay.
It's not extraordinary, but you're a working actor.
Right.
And usually by the time you get a Broadway show or something, you're paying off bills from a long time ago. Ups and downs, bartending, off-Broadway, you name it, regional theater. And suddenly you're on Broadway. And if you have a good Broadway show that lasts, I've never been on anything that really lasted more than a year because I always do these really alt Broadway shows. But I was paid a decent amount of money that sort of would get my head above the water. There was a moment when I was actually going to leave this business. It was right before I booked Fear the Walking Dead. I had just come back from London doing a show called The Scottsboro Boys. And I felt like it was a show that I did everything I wanted to do in it. Artistically, it fulfilled me in such a great way that coming back, I felt like I wasn't getting offered the opportunities that I thought that made sense to do after, so I was going to leave this business behind.
Like entirely?
Yes, entirely. For a long time, you think, oh, well, I went and did this show in London. I have an Olivier nomination and a Tony nomination for it. Usually you feel like, things will, move forward. Your next job, you'll get paid a little bit more money or the opportunities will roll in. No, you went back to zero. So I would go back to New York and I would have opportunities that were not moving up to the next level. And so now I'm in my early to mid 40s.
Okay.
And I thought, well, this kind of doesn't make sense anymore. I'm looking around at my friends and colleagues who are attorneys and doctors and have 401ks.
Yeah.
And I felt like, I think I have to think about my family in a different way and how we're going to take care of ourselves. So I wanted to make a smart decision. And then had some changes in my agents and my managers. And I was given it 6 more months. I finally had an agent that had some access. And people started to look at my audition tapes. And that's when I booked Fear the Walking Dead. And it's the first time I was a lead on a show where I got paid a significant amount of money. But even still, I was on a show that we can get killed off on any episode. So I was careful. I was like, great. It was the first time I was making money. And I think my first contracts was something like, I was making like $32,000 an episode, which as a theater actor, that was a lot of money.
Yeah.
It still is a lot of money to many people. But also when it comes to the scale, it's kind of low for television scale. I was conservative.
Right.
For the first 3 years, I still lived in my rent-stabilized apartment. From the outside, people are like, well, you're making all this money. You're on TV. People know you now. Shouldn't you be doing this? Shouldn't you? I'm like, don't lean into the shouldas.
Yeah.
Don't look at my money. I'm being smart about it.
Yeah.
I really pace myself because I know what it's like to be poor. And I grew up I've never used the word poor before, but because I thought that I was very wealthy growing up with love and all. But it's the first time financially I've actually said that I was poor. And I was. Yeah.
That's the difference between when you have money and when you don't. When you actually have money, you get to stop thinking about it. You get to think about literally everything else.
Yeah.
You actually have the opportunity to make plans for the future. Do you find that you and your husband, Raul, have any sort of like scarcity mindset or money traumas from childhood?
Yes.
Oh, you're like giggling.
Yeah, we do. We do.
Yeah.
But we always have to like step into a new way of being and thinking. But that's some reframing for someone who comes from a third world country. My husband and myself who comes from inner city West Philadelphia.
Right.
We just moved to Malibu 2 years ago. As we have been settling into Malibu, we almost had to take stock to say, well, who are we now?
Right.
Because we live in a gated community and
Very affluent.
very affluent in every way. And it feels like you almost have to make new agreements with yourself or who you are. Well, where do you go? Where do you market? Where do you do these things? And also then having a public profile, just like, oh, we have to live a little differently. It's all changes. And I feel like it all goes back to what you're used to and the way you grew up as well. I feel like I sort of advocate and fight for always being with people. And I know I had a talk with a friend of mine who was like, what are you still doing going to like a very well-known sort of like public gym? You need more of a private gym. I'm like, no, I have to be with people. I can't have everything just so isolated. As an artist, where am I pulling from? Where do I get fuel from?
Yeah.
And for me, it's from like seeing people and being in the world,
You heard it here first. Colman Domingo is not letting the money change him.
Not fully.
Not fully. My main goal is to blow up and act like I don't know nobody. So we've talked a little bit about your husband, Raul, but we have to talk about the meet cute.
Oh my God, yes.
Come on.
The meet cute,
Tell me the
yes.
story. Tell me the story again. I love it.
Okay, it's been told so many times.
I know, but I love it.
I told this story, and I think it's taken off because it's such a analog story about love. But basically, it was 21 years ago. I was walking down the streets, Berkeley, California, going to the Walgreens, and I walked by this guy who I thought, I didn't even want to say the words was beautiful, but I thought like I'd never seen a face like his before, and I was struck by it. We looked at each other. We didn't speak. I came back out. We're looking at each other. I'm on the phone. He's with this girl. She's pissed off about something. I'm like, he keeps looking at me. I'm like, I want to talk to him. I eventually get off the phone. They're already walking down the streets. He keeps turning back. He does not come back. I'm standing there dumbfounded, like, who was that? It's like my soul was connected to him. And then 3 days later, I'm trying to buy a used computer on Craigslist. If people remember, they had all these categories, and they have one section called misconnections. And I thought, what if I placed one of those misconnections ads? Because I used to read them all the time. I'm a romantic. So I'm reading them. I'm just sitting there reading, and I saw, and I'll never forget where it was. It was at third from the top on the second page, and it said, saw you outside of Walgreens, Berkeley. And I jumped up and I said, that's him. That's him. He literally posted the ad for me 1 hour before. He described me. I had a faux hawk. Now, remember, it was 2005. I had a faux hawk. He had hair down to here. And we met up 2 days later, went to a restaurant called Dalva in the Mission District, San Francisco. And I told him I loved him on the first night. I said, I think I love you. You're going to change my life. I just knew it.
That's crazy.
It's a very hopeful story that love exists out there in the world. And you just, like with all things, you just have to take a chance. I think sometimes we know too much, and it takes us out of the chemistry of just meeting someone. And so I feel like that it's a very hopeful story, and I hope people take heed with that and just learn that. Get off the phone. You don't need to know everything. You don't need to know a person's financial profile. Get out there.
Okay, but like, wouldn't you want that information in advance?
No.
Really?
No. And I say it again, I would not want to know any of that information. I think that gets in the way of you truly having a chemical reaction with someone, that being. And you have to go on that journey, and you have to be willing to risk something to know and find out. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
To not know everything about a person. Let's see. This person may be insane,
Right.
but I've got to take a chance. You know, my friends always know that. They know that wherever I go, I always make a new friend.
Yeah.
And sometimes you meet someone, you're like, ooh, that was dicey.
Weird.
I'm that person that can easily be like drawn into a cult because
No.
not easily, but because I'm like, oh, they're nice people. Let's see what they have to offer. And then I'm like, oh, wait a minute, that's a cult. We should back up now. Yeah.
We should go.
Yeah.
I believe it too, because guess what? I met my husband in the basement of a dive bar where the floors were sticky and it was stinky and...
But you believed in love, didn't you?
I did.
You believed you would find love.
Yeah.
You believed that there was someone out there for you. See? But this
Yeah.
see, we're vibing now. Because I do believe that when you know, and there's no questions actually.
Yeah.
Heart knows.
Yeah.
And you know pretty quickly.
You catch a vibe.
You catch a vibe and you're like, let's figure it out together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Aside from Raul, what is the best thing you ever got off of Craigslist?
The best, besides Raul, what is the best thing I ever got off of Craigslist? Actually, I got this blue couch when I lived in Harlem. I got this blue couch for like $300.
Nice.
It was great. It was
Okay.
great. Craigslist was great. Yeah.
Raul?
Yeah.
Blue couch.
Exactly. That's it. Exactly.
When you're building a life with someone, money oftentimes does come into the conversation like pretty quickly.
Yeah.
At the time when you met, was there any sort of major discrepancies around money, or like how did you navigate that together?
My previous relationships, we sort of kept things a bit separate. But with Raul, for some reason, it made sense that we do this together, that we build together. And I know that like there are certain times when I was working and he was in school, that the balances of who holds the financial burden was different.
Yeah.
But I knew that like I can only do what I can do by Raul helping to support in another way.
Right.
If I'm getting ready for something, Raul's always ironing, he's taking care of things, he's doing the dishes, he makes sure the home is good while I'm out there doing this other stuff. And I think that counts equally. So it's always been that whatever money we make, whether I make individually or he makes on his own or we make together, it's always together. For me, I feel like that creates a harmony with us to know that this is our money and we're managing it.
Have you guys ever fought about money?
No,
Never.
we never fight about money.
Wow.
I'll tell you the one thing that I had to get used to was the fact that he has really good taste, but he's taught me about something. Like when we bought like, let's say some Camaleonda furniture, which is very expensive custom furniture. And I'm like, wow, dude, you got to have that. They got a knockoff, don't they? I mean, He's like, it'll hurt once. Spend the money. It's quality. You deserve it.
Yeah.
So psychologically, he got me to think about how I spend my money. Is that, oh, that may cost $60,000, but it's only one time. And it's going to be something that will mature and will get reupholstered at some point. But this will be something that it's an investment.
From the $300 Craigslist couch to the $60,000 couch.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The idea that I've even said that I paid $60,000 for a couch is wild to me. That was more than what both my parents made in 1 year.
Right.
You know, the idea that I can actually afford that now.
Yeah.
But I try to make those smart decisions. I'm like, I'm going to buy it once. I will have it 10 years from now, you know? Yeah, so it'll appreciate in its value, you know?
In the modern era of love, I find it really interesting that Raul and you work together.
Yeah.
And he is more of a behind the scenes, behind the camera person. Have you ever thought about like monetizing the relationship,
No, my God, that would be the last thing we would do. Because we're both actually like very private when it comes to our relationship. We like the idea that we're like two cats at home. You know, when you go to somebody's house and they're like, oh, we have two cats. You're like, wait, I've only seen one. The other one is under the bed and you see these two little eyes sticking out. That's Raul. And it's funny because anytime he's out, he's a very handsome guy and people always want to take his picture. They always want him on a red carpet.
His nightmare.
And he's like, no, I'm good. I don't need to be on the red carpet. I'm cool. I'm good.
Yeah.
He's on a red carpet if I'm being honored or together or he's a producer on something. But otherwise, he's like, I'm good.
Okay, so that viral moment where you tell your meet cute story on Graham Norton, did that open any other career doors for you, aside from the fact that I'm going to send you a script about this later?
No, it didn't. But what it did, I think that was a very conscious moment to continue to humanize myself and my relationship, and to make it as ordinary as anyone else's love relationship. So it's not specifically sort of a gay story, but it's just a story of love. That was strategic as well, because I think that, you know, when people are sort of like, quote unquote, buying into me, you want them to buy into the truth of who you are and all of you. You know, what I think about when it comes to love and how hopeful I am. So for me, it tells that story. And hopefully then the work follows. That people know that those are the rooms I want to be in, where they're inspired in that way, you know?
You give me eternal optimist vibes.
Well, that's a great way to put it. Eternal optimist. I know that I am. I don't know why. I think there's enough in this world to make you a bit more pessimistic and
Certainly.
And a little dark. But I feel like part of my job is to show the light, the hope. There's got to be people out in the street raging, yes, but there's also got to be the people that have the dance parties going for them when they come home. I'm that person. I'm that person who's supposed to help remember why they're doing what they're doing and why we love and why we fight and why we're enraged.
Yeah.
I think I'm that reminder. I think everyone needs to know where their place is.
Yeah.
And this whole thing that we're trying to create in the world. And I know mine.
You meet Raul, you fall in love, you build a life together, and then you decide to go into business together, founding Edith Productions.
Yeah.
What was that decision like? You
That
want to
was-
spend more time with this person?
I know, right? Well, listen, that happened at the top of the pandemic. At the top of the pandemic, I got a first look deal with AMC Networks. And I'm like, okay, who would I want to work with? And Raul has, behind the scenes, he's always read every script that I've written. He always has great notes. He's got great taste. He comes from a fashion background. He went to FIT and he was a costume designer for years. But he's a great editorial mind. And I was like, man, would you want to work with me on this production company and create something that is very much just us, not based on anyone else's production company? In what capacity? I don't know. You'd be the president of it? I'd be the CEO. He wasn't familiar with producing television or film or anything, but I trust him and I trust his taste. And I love the fact that he's sort of alt Hollywood in a way. He's got a whole different brain. He's not coming in from working at Fox and all these other places. He's like, no, I'm coming in as a very different artist with an editorial brain and creative. And he said, let's, if you trust me, he said, I'd love to, because we love working with each other. And we don't agree on everything. We actually we're very strong about our opinions, but we're like, okay, I hear you. But I trust him more than I trust anybody artistically. And I feel like I can build anything with him because at our foundation, it's not only love, it's like tremendous respect for each other.
Before we get back into our conversation with Colman, let's see how SoFi can help you reach all your money goals. If buying a house feels too unrealistic, even for your vision board, let's talk. Because owning a home doesn't have to feel like an out-of-reach fantasy. With SoFi Home Mortgage Loans, you can get matched with a local real estate agent. Plus, they offer affordable down payment options starting as low as 3% for qualifying first-time homebuyers. Their digital tools make everything simple, and their human support ensures you're never navigating it alone. And with industry-leading speed and a $10,000 on-time close guarantee offer, SoFi helps turn dreams into keys. Take the first step at SoFi.com/home-loans. Now that you are in a very different financial position, do you feel pressured or obligated or even want to take care of your siblings, your family?
I am someone that gives gifts to my family because I think that's just who I am, and I love my family, and I don't want them to suffer in any way. But the gift is very specific. I said, this is for you to enjoy in some way. It's not for a bill. I would love for you to take a vacation. I would love for you to buy yourself something silly. I want you to enjoy this. If you need some of it to pay some bills, great, I understand. But my gift, because I feel like you've earned this in a way, is to have you need some mad money once in a while.
Yeah.
So I wanted to give them that gift.
Joy.
Yeah, that's it. A gift of joy.
What's your best mad money purchase?
The first mad money purchase I had was when I was on the Big Gay Sketch Show on Logo years ago. It was the first time I made some real good money. And they gave me like a $5,000 bonus. And I was like, oh, we need to go blow this money. So we went to Miami. We got a hotel room. This is what the money's for.
Yeah.
I said, we ate at I think it was the Ritz-Carlton for Thanksgiving. Everything was a yes. I said, whatever it is a yes, as long as it falls under this blanket of money. We get massages, we do all this stuff. But I feel like you need sometimes to carve that out for yourself. It's a moment for mad money.
I love to do that when I budget for a vacation. People are like always stressing about the $30 smoothie. I'm like, it doesn't matter, I budgeted for it.
Exactly, blow it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You need it.
You need it. Yeah.
So now I want to just brag about you for a second.
Okay.
You became the first openly gay Black man nominated for Best Actor at the Academy Awards. What's that moment represent to you? And maybe what does it represent to little Colman?
I didn't know until it happened. I was like, how cool that I'm sort of breaking a barrier in many ways, especially with the roles that I represent. I got nominated for Rustin. I got nominated again for Sing Sing.
Sing Sing, by the way, is my favorite thing you've ever done.
Thank you. Thank you. It feels incredible. I feel like the idea that I've always just sort of had my head down and just doing the work and showing up to be amplified for someone like Rustin, someone who was really lost in the history books and now brought his story to light. And now everyone knows who Bayard Rustin is. That feels impactful and significant. It feels like Bayard Rustin was coming out of the shadows of history as an openly gay man at the same time while I'm amplifying him, at the same time not being limited in my experience as an actor. That's the most beautiful thing. It's like, yeah, I'm the first openly Black gay man nominated for an Academy Award. And my career is never following any tropes. The next thing people saw me in was Sing Sing. I'm playing a heterosexual man who was incarcerated.
Yeah.
And I know that is unique. And I know I've been carving a path that is very unique. And I would tell it to young Colman, keep going. I'm proud of you.
Do you ever worry that living by your values, following your passion, and taking these more artistic approaches would ever impact, the financial upside available to you?
They have at times. I think you do work like Sing Sing. Sing Sing was capitalized for $1.5 million and everyone got paid equally. Myself and all the formerly incarcerated men and the crew and the cast. I think the day rate, I'd like to say the day rate was like $200 a day. And you don't do work like that for the money. The blessing is, luckily, I've been doing work in such a way where I could afford to do that. Most of my artistic pursuits have never been about money. It's always been about the art. As I've gotten, older and wiser, I know that I do need that cushion as well to be able to do that work. You know what I mean? Because now I have mortgages and and things like that. You know what I mean? So now I'm just trying to be smarter and figure out, oh yeah, I can do that to do that. I feel like one does feed the other in some way, shape, or form. That's why I've worked in the branding spaces or in the fashion spaces and all that. One feeds the other, so I can actually go and do the things that I really care about.
You have such limited time. How do you decide now what is worth doing? Because you have work in the actual TV film space, in branding, in fashion. Like, how do you juggle it all?
It's always my North Star to say, like, do I really care to be there? Do I really, especially now. Now when you look around, I have a beautiful property. I have some money in the bank, which is beautiful. So now it's a little harder to get me out. Because I'm like, if you really want me to leave all this, it's got to be worthwhile to me in some way, shape, or form. Whether to my heart or to my financial stability. I'm being dead serious. But something's got to get me out of Malibu.
You're an indoor cat, a homebody.
Exactly. Otherwise, I'm just going to be here tilling the land, making a meal, having some friends over. You know what I mean? Because also I feel like I've also earned that part. I've been working for 35 years, and I'm actually trying to invite in more moments to be still and to not be on a plane somewhere and constantly working. That's been my whole career. And this is new for me. I don't have anything lined up for the next, until I do some press tours, which is odd for most people. But people are like, oh, well, what are you working on next? I'm like, I don't know just yet. I actually don't know. And it's kind of liberating because I do trust that I will work again. I will trust that there's other opportunities. But also I feel like it's important to take in some moments. And I think I'm giving myself that gift. I'm not in the building stage anymore. And I recognize that. It was constant building wealth, building access, having agency. And then suddenly you're like, oh, I'm actually sort of in a different phase. And I think it's a harvest phase.
You planted the seeds, now you want to taste the fruit.
Yeah, I want to sit at the table and enjoy it and take my time with it. But then that's a new shift in your mindset too. It all starts here and in here.
I need to get to that phase. Okay, I have to know, Colman, is there some type of project or partnership or anything that you wouldn't do no matter the amount of money?
It's funny because I've done some real tricky work. And I played villains and abusers. If there's projects that's really solely and mainly about darkness in some way or dark matter, without any hope attached to it or any light, it's not for me. It's just not. And I've read some things like that. And I'm like, oh, well, what is the point of this?
Right.
And if it's just putting more ugly into the world or darkness, I'm not interested. Yeah. That may be general, but I feel like that's specific for me.
Yeah.
I feel like things where there's no light or hope.
I told you, eternal optimist.
Absolutely. Truly.
You are a ray of sunshine.
Truly. Thank you.
Thank you so much for chatting with me. I feel warmer, brighter, smarter for having gotten to spend this time with you. And thanks for sharing your story. I can't wait to see what you do next, even though I know you have a little break.
Oh, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you again. Thank you so much for this. This is great.
That's a wrap on today's episode. Drop your favorite takeaway from Colman in the comments. Send this to someone who appreciates style and substance. And be sure to subscribe for more from Richer Lives. See you next time.
Look at that. Today, I'm wearing Ralph Lauren. You know?